What's up, everybody? My name is Indy, and the gentleman next to me is Mr. Jay Powell from Powell Group Consulting, and welcome to Indie Game Business. Today, we've got Danny Silver from Lantana Games, and we are talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of NFTs and crypto.
So, Danny, welcome. I would caution you that we're broadcasting live from Hoth on my end because it's the middle of a blizzard, but I'm sure it's nice and warm up north where you are. So
probably a little warmer.
Let's start where we always start with everybody. Tell us about how you got into the industry initially, and then walk us through what you've been doing up to this point.
How I got into the industry. So I decided to make games when I was 5. I remember it vividly. It was a day at summer camp, and I started drawing fake screenshots of video games, and I was like, I should actually make this. And so then, like, as a kid, I just started, like, studying a little bit of programming and graphic design, getting into, like, level editors in Lode Runner The Legend Returns, and Jazz Jackrabbit 2, and StarCraft, and Unreal Tournament. And then that all eventually led me to study game development at the Savannah College of Art and Design, where I studied design under Brenda Romero, and eventually graduated into the midst of a major economic collapse that happened to be going on at the same time as the start of the indie game revolution. So I was like, you know what, I'll go indie. I think this seems like destiny. And so I founded Lantana Games shortly after that, and then dabbled in running events with the Boston Festival of Indie Games between 2012 and 2014. Then pretty much came back to Lantana after that, released the first Mondrian game in 2015. Then 5 years later, the second Mondrian game, Plastic Reality. And then that was at, like, the height of the pandemic, essentially. And then that lined up with the craze in crypto and NFTs, which was really interesting to me because I was, making a game in live service, pretty much running a live service game by myself at that point, that was focused on user-generated content, basically bringing everything full circle back to where I was as a kid, being obsessed with level editors and such. Now finally making a game that included a level editor that was, like, central to the experience. And so here I am, like, so you're telling me that we've got this new technology that's all about art and user-generated content, and I have a game that's all about art and user-generated content? Well, I'd be an idiot to not jump on this bandwagon, at least, dangle off of it. So here I am.
So you did a wonderful job of deciding to jump into the industry. At the same time, I decided to start, my first company in the industry during that wonderful recession. So I'm with you on that one, dude. That was
hell of a time to start up.
Yes, I mean, it's one of those that if you could do it at that point in time, you can literally do it anytime, because it's just not going to get much worse than that right now. So, all right, obviously, NFTs are, I don't know,
weird.
Is shitstorm the right word that I'm looking for here?
It's building up into a shitstorm. I think at the moment it's like we're tracking the shitstorm moving in, and we can feel it, like we're on the edge of the clouds right now. And the first drops are starting to hit. I think that's where we are.
So let's run through a lot of the basic questions first. One of the, like the default response that we always hear is, NFTs and crypto are a solution to a problem that nobody has. So, and truthfully, that can be said for a number of things. It was the same thing that was said when free-to-play games came around too. But from your standpoint, and being on the indie side of this, and just like none of us are getting rich off of this stuff because we're not investors that are dropping $10 million into these companies and things like that.
Right.
What drew you to NFTs? What do you see as an indie dev, as the benefit of crypto and NFT and Web3 in general?
Well, for me, it kind of comes back to the start of downloadable content in a way, thinking back to like horse armor in Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and then even the Bethesda store after that, how developers had kind of been trying to find ways to monetize user-generated content. And to this day, it is still a problem that nobody has been able to solve. Because you've got the developer interests, you've got the user interests, and then you also have the community interests, and these all kind of clash with each other. I mean, obviously, the developer wants to make the most money because they made the game in the first place. The user wants to make the most money because they've, say, created a total conversion experience in some game, so it doesn't, maybe even resemble the original game at all. And then the community is like, we don't want to pay for this content directly. We'd rather, support modders through like subscription services, a la Patreon or Ko-Fi. And generally mods aren't considered like their own premium products. And so they've always been in this really weird gray state. And I'm generally a believer that, mods have always been free, and they're passion projects that are great springboards into bigger things, more original things. And should that culture is not something that should be abandoned. To me, NFTs add a new twist onto that, where the mods can still continue to be free, but if you happen to own the NFT of it, you can support the developer, support the modder, support the community all at once, based on how the revenue is shared from that NFT. But everybody can still continue to download the mod freely if they so choose. But them being programmatic, you can maybe offer some bonus experiences to go along with that, or throw in some bonus content, or add it, make it more shiny in game if you happen to own the NFT. There's little bits of fair things you can do with it that you couldn't, like, not to say you couldn't necessarily do that otherwise, but just on that level alone, I think there's interesting opportunities there to reignite the discussion about how to support the modding community.
All right, so that actually leads directly into the next biggest argument that we always hear. And, for anybody out there, whether you're listening on the Discord, if you're on the Discord, you got questions, pop them into that podcast questions channel. If you're anywhere else, just pop them into YouTube or Twitch or Facebook or wherever you're, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching, they'll come up on our screen. We'll get them answered. But that leads directly into the next, big criticism that we always hear is, okay, they're not adding anything that we can't already add. Everybody likes to point back to the Diablo, was it Diablo 3 market or whatever?
Yeah, the marketplace.
Which just turned into a clusterfuck because everybody was, duping things. And I'm like, okay, that didn't work. So that's a bad analogy. But, I hadn't thought about it on like the mod side. But I mean, what is the advantage of having it as an NFT versus how people are, sharing content and doing this stuff today anyway?
Well, theoretically, because it lives outside of the game, that does mean it can be, used in more cross-platform manners. So on the most basic level, say you buy a piece of art on OpenSea or Calumet or wherever, and then in any particular blockchain connected game, you can say, hey, scan my wallet for stuff, and then it loads up your pictures, and then say you can bring your art into your virtual environment. So the same could then be done with like a weapon skin or
All right, wait, time out
a
there.
helmet.
You and I both know damn well that ain't gonna happen, because you can't even get publishers to agree to have cross game shit within the games that they already own.
See, you say that, except there's a twist that is shaking things up, and that's Roblox. And across the Roblox ecosystem, this is already being done,
Well,
where
yes,
developers will create an item that is then usable across multiple games. So
but then we
it's
get
not
back
that
to
it's
the whole thing of they're already doing it, so why do they need an NFT?
honestly, we
Because you
we
think this is
don't
going to
have
be
an
easy?
answer for that. It's really just the convenience of not being locked into a particular ecosystem like Roblox or
Yeah.
Core or Dreams or whatever. Really, what they do is create a more decentralized approach to content sharing, really. So no item or texture or artwork or theoretically mod is limited to the space created by a single developer. Now, of course, have we seen this in action yet? No. Are we going to see it in action? I don't know. It's really just theoretical at this point.
I mean, so Roblox is a good example, and honestly, I hadn't even thought about that one. And yeah, they're doing it right now. I can see this happening if Fortnite expands into something else, or in Core, where Core is basically like a next level
The next
Roblox
level
running on
Roblox. Yeah.
Unity. I mean, not Unity, Unreal.
Unreal. Yeah.
But all the folks that are always like, I can buy a game in Call of Duty, and then I can buy a gun in Call of Duty, and then I can use it in whatever else. I'm like, no, that's
it's not quite like that. Like, you might be able to bring the model in, but it's not going to bring the in-game programming along with it. It's not going to bring
otherwise I'm going to be like
the
farming
shot balance and cooldowns and it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we always see people talking about, and I'm like, no, listen, that's very nice of you to dream that that's going to happen, but that shit's not going to happen.
No.
All right, so we actually got a question coming in on Discord. Is it possible? And so I'm going to ask a couple of general questions about NFTs. We see the stuff about NFTs and art, and it's just a rip. But there was somebody else, another one of these ape things got the rug pulled out from him, and somebody wandered off with like $1.5 million this weekend. Does an NFT always have to be art? What can an NFT be?
Theoretically, an NFT can be any file. Because the NFT is not the file itself. The NFT is essentially a receipt connected to that file. For all intents and purposes, it's a proof of purchase, really. So the file itself lives on just a regular server somewhere, anything from your own web host to like a Dropbox, Google Drive kind of thing. And then the NFT is really just the proof of purchase of that, which has like a link back to that file. So if that file disappears, then the NFT is kind of worthless. But in the meantime, if it's online, then it can be anything from a JPEG to an MP3 to a movie file to a custom level that somebody's made in a game. I mean, really, it can be any file extension, really.
So it's basically like a receipt.
Yeah. It's a proof of purchase. At the end of the day.
All right. So from Capture Rapture over on the Discord. Is it possible to use NFTs in games that are not always connected to the internet?
I'm going to say yes, with the caveat being that at some point, it obviously would need to be connected to the internet to detect that, yeah, you have NFT ownership. And then, you just write a value to the user save file that's like, yeah, they own this particular NFT of this item. It's downloaded, give them the bonus. And then that's stored locally. Of course, there's security issues that go along with that. Like, I'm say gonna make a user file that claims I own all these NFTs, and then I'll put it online for everybody to download the save file that has all these bonuses attached to it. But theoretically, yeah, you just have to do a one-time detection that you own the NFT, and then keep playing with it.
So given what you see in the market right now, and it's like I have so many questions, and I have a feeling this might go on for more than an hour, if that's cool with you and
It's
Dan.
fine.
So what you're seeing right now in terms of a lot of the stuff is boiling around pieces of art that are out there. Ubisoft has released some guns and stuff on courts. Is there a good use for an NFT in a game right now that you are seeing? I mean, obviously, you're going to be biased because your game has NFTs. But anyway,
So I'd like to point out before I get banned on Steam, my game is not NFT connected. What I do is, because the game is all about making art, I have made art pieces from the game and have those up essentially as digital merch, which is sort of the best use I feel for a low budget indie at this point, is to really just think about it as like the same as you would a t-shirt or socks or a coffee mug. Like, this is just, there are collectors out there who are collecting digital items. These are some digital items that we can offer up. And honestly, indie developers are out very little for taking that approach and just being like, hey, we can pull in an extra $5, $10, anywhere up to like $3,000 for a single, Ethereum coin, just for, making art, like selling our concept art on these platforms, or, putting up a modified version of a 3D model from the game or something. There's a bunch of different approaches you can take. But yes, Steam itself has banned blockchain from games on the platform because of some bad actors that were just generating Bitcoin in the back end. So
they have it though. This is the thing. This is just totally Steam. Where is my freaking Steam thing? So we actually had a question come in from one of our clients in Korea the other day on the consulting side, and they were asking what the environment was here in the US and Western Europe on crypto and NFTs and play to earn mechanics in the first place. And that's always the first thing that comes up. It's like Steam has banned it, but they haven't, because one of our other clients, we made the South Korean publisher. Hold on, let me see. Let me double check and make sure this is still here. But Mir4, MIR4, is a play to earn game that is absolutely huge in Korea, and they have brought it here to the US. And yes, it is still on the Steam store, and it's a complete play to win.
weird.
Play to earn, not play to win. Everything's play to win. Play to earn.
Yeah.
Game. And so it's kind of like Steam saying we're going to like allow porn games when they did that. And then they turn around and go, wait, no, we're not. They reacted to something, but they're not actually apparently enforcing it that heavy, because Mir 4 is still out there on the market.
I wonder if maybe it's just kind of like a future thing where, because I'm looking at the release date of this. This is August 25th, and that I think is before Steam made the announcement that they were banning crypto games, at least by a little bit.
Yeah, but it seems like they would have pulled anything. That's what they did with the porn games. There's no point in us trying to figure out what Steam's doing because Steam never. There's absolutely no consistency there anyway. But
I love Steam, but yeah, there's. I got nothing. Honestly,
I think that sums up all of us right now. It's like, yes, we love Steam, but yeah,
guys.
All right. So, all right. Another question coming in. How can publishers take advantage of NFTs for cross IP initiative within the same publisher, i.e., Ubisoft, Take-Two, etc.?
How can publishers take advantage of NFTs for cross IP initiatives within the same publisher? Well, I think that really just comes down to licensing. If you're, if any publisher, say, is looking for making items cross-platform between, say like Rainbow Six and so like take Ubisoft for example. If they're looking to bring Rainbow Six guns into Assassin's Creed, for instance, then they would just need like communication, maybe some licensing agreements or something. I'm not sure I completely understand the question because
you're on the right path. I mean, that's what the easiest example that I could think of off the top of my head is if we look at Fortnite, for example, being within a greater spectrum of games that technically aren't actually there yet or not, being able to take your skins and you don't really level up weapons or anything like that in Fortnite, but you'll be able to take that into other games that they own. But the reality of this, that's the theory. But even when you're talking about, games that are within the same publisher, you're talking about different development studios, sometimes dozens of development studios on one project that are, adding to code and everything else. It's just aside from the very basic stuff, it would be very, very difficult. I think, honestly, right now, in terms of cross-game items, like you said, Roblox is probably your best example
because Roblox has like
overly complicated.
Yeah, because Roblox has a single back-end ecosystem that controls these items, these games, worlds, etc. So if publishers are interested in doing that, then they essentially would be looking into using some kind of NFT ecosystem as an equivalent backend. And really the only difference there between either doing that or, just making it proprietary and normal is just that it's blockchain and it lives forever. And theoretically, you can't delete anything off of the blockchain. So if you ever want to get rid of an item, you maybe, could set up a burn wallet for yourself. But I don't know.
So he on the Discord had a really good analogy, and he said it sounds like right now, NFTs in games are a lot like Skylanders toys. The digital version, and so
exactly
over here at
almost more like Amiibo, honestly. The way that multiple games can use an Amiibo, you scan it in, and then like in Smash, you're playing with that particular character, or you bring it into say Mario Party or whatever. It is kind of like that, just digital.
And so I'm sitting when it gets down to like who would buy these things. It's like I literally, if I turn my camera, I have a wall of shelves that is like all the Disney Infinity things, the Lego Dimensions things, and they are damn near worthless on the actual market right now, but they're actually cool looking. So I have them all.
Right.
But, there's an example, when people just have that knee jerk reaction and they say, well, nobody's ever going to do this. It's like, Yeah, they
Well,
are.
as a matter of fact, they are.
Yes,
And
they already have. It's a
it's
matter of, developers and publishers putting these things together in a, ethical and non-completely patronizing way of putting them in games. But
exactly.
Hickey, you're dead on. That is what these things are right now. They are
Yeah.
digital
And
amiibos and Skylanders and all
that's
that other stuff.
why I've been taking the approach of, think of these things as digital merch, but more than even just owning a t-shirt. Well, okay, so this is interesting. In the crypto space, particularly in the art crypto space, there's a term called Fidgetal, which I hate. Because I tend to hate portmanteaus anyway, but it's like a physical digital item. So like, you get the NFT of something and you get its physical form. So there's a lot of artists, for instance, where if you buy the NFT of their painting, they'll get in touch with you and then ship you the actual painting of it as well, which, say has the wallet key written on the back of it so that whoever owns the painting will also own the NFT. We can kind of do the same thing in games as well, if we want to. So, even if, say, you sell a t-shirt, maybe that t-shirt is connected to an NFT, and then characters in your games can wear your brand's t-shirt. So, like, all of a sudden you buy, say, a Lantana Games t-shirt. Note to self, do this. You buy a Lantana Games t-shirt. It comes with an NFT version of it, and then you can put that t-shirt on your Fortnite character, and then before you know it, Fortnite is just littered with indie game developer logos running
Let's
all
face it,
over the place.
it's going to be a bunch of penis t-shirts. That's what it's going to
Probably,
be.
yeah.
Yeah.
Probably, but savvy businessmen will think more maturely about that.
All right. So that's actually a really good analogy. And, they don't work cross-platform. Rob Edgell is pointing out. But if we imagine a future like Disney Infinity, where each different little playset is a different game, that is in theory how it could work. But
right, and that's where a lot of like the metaverse talk comes in, is this like every piece of digital clothing we own will be available in all our games and blah blah blah. But that's assuming, again, that people buy into a metaverse that A, is not Facebook developed, B, is focused on this idea of user creativity and business growth and web openness, etc. And it's tough to get really any company on that page, because that makes some assumption that they care about the well-being of other companies besides their own.
all right, so the next question is, what's the best way for developers and publishers to sync operations with NFTs? But before we dive to that point, let's take it back a step. Another one of the gigantic criticisms is the environmental impact of these different blockchains things. And we know like Bitcoin and even Ethereum are gigantic energy hogs. Now
Yeah.
we're seeing, China has completely killed mining in their territory. Kosovo or somewhere, one of the big Eastern European, I just saw it in the news like this week, huge hub for crypto mining. They just killed all of theirs because of the power intake and the environmental impact. Are there crypto choices out there that you know of that are not like completely, that operate efficiently, environmentally?
Absolutely. So there's a new form of crypto generation coming out called staking, which is more akin to like an investment with dividends on the back end. And so this new technology does away with graphics card mining requirements entirely, and really it's just based on, people buy in, that alone generates the crypto, and then people are actually rewarded for their efforts once a month, instead of I happen to stumble upon the solution of an incredibly complex algorithm, and I'm rewarded in a tenth of 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 a Bitcoin for my efforts. And so you get networks like Tezos and actually Ethereum 2.0, which is in development right now. And you can actually stake into and start earning very small rewards on that. There are, plenty of technologies that are much greener and cleaner and easier to use. And hopefully, as this technology and philosophy behind crypto starts becoming more commonplace, and even whatever its successor is, because there will be a successor to staking at some point, then this really just starts to become, part of the daily routine of the internet. Is where I see things going, and eventually you won't even think about it, much as the same way, like we used to say have to write www.whatever.com before we went to a website, and now you can literally just pretty much just type in Discord and your browser's like, okay, cool, I'm taking you to Discord.
So with that in mind, then, so how can, especially, we're not necessarily, we're not here to tell Ubisoft how to do their shit because they're not going to listen to us anyway.
Mhm.
How can indie teams, effectively hop in and link into these different tools, whatever we want to call them?
Every single one of them has instructions on how to programmatically access their networks, their blockchains. And it's oddly not nearly as difficult as you might think it would be. I think Tezos, for instance, like connects with JavaScript or something really, really simple. And then it's really just a matter of, sending some commands back and forth. I remember there was a night on Clubhouse a little while ago that my friend John Radoff from Beamable actually made a branch token of Solana called VRimpcoin that night, and which was just a meme coin based on like Nestle's new vegetarian shrimp that they called Vrimp that everybody was memeing at the time. And so he gave me 1 million of those for like $15. I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe someday this will pop off, and when it's $1 of Vrimp coin, I'll be a millionaire. But in the meantime, I'm only out $15. It's cool.
Hey,
But
look,
like he literally made this brand new coin, while we were just chatting on Clubhouse in under an hour. It really doesn't take a lot of effort.
I do, but is that necessarily a good thing? Because it's like, pump and dump schemes have been around as long as the stock market has.
Right.
And now we're getting pump and dump, scams on crypto, which in some ways, I'll be honest, I don't really give a shit. If you are that desperate, crazy, uneducated enough to chunk a bunch of money into a Frimp-based crypto that some dude just generated during Clubhouse, you're on your own. I am not going to sit here.
I mean, there's different levels of these things. It's like, do I want to support a friend who just did a cool, essentially like art piece project? Yeah, why not? I'm only out $15. Am I putting, say, $100,000 into Shiba Inu? Absolutely not. Like,
I only put $50,000 into that. So yeah, that's
there's really like different levels of these things. And then, anybody making their own coin. So you take a look at a game like Sandbox, for instance. You go to their website.
Yes, let's talk about that.
You go to their website, they actually go very detailed, very in depth about, what their coin is called, what their intention is with it, where you can buy it, where you can sell it, what you can do with it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very clean, very simple, like website white paper, essentially. But then you get others where they just talk in like crazy crypto jargon. You can't make heads or tails out of it. You don't know what their intention is. Don't even know if they have an intention or if they're just trying to get your money as quickly as possible and then abandon the project that, you know, they promised would be, you know, the first real life Matrix. And you're like, I want nothing to do with that. So it really just is a matter of staying
Common
savvy.
sense.
Yeah, common sense.
All right, so Sandbox is a good segue into my like rant from last week. So Sandbox was announced as one of the sponsors for Global Game Jam, and a segment of Twitter and the internet lost their absolute fucking mind over it. The one of the responses literally said, "How could they do this to me?" And I'm like, they
They don't
didn't
owe
do this
you.
to you. No one sat down and said, we're going to screw over some point part. It frustrates me, especially as somebody who runs events like this that doesn't get paid to do it. I assure you, neither Dan, myself, or anyone else involved in indie game business is getting rich off of this shit that we've been doing for 3 years. It is hard to find sponsors. And we have so many people out there who are just absolutely convinced that nothing good is going to come from this, that they say these companies are evil and they're completely after horrible shit, and then they do something like sponsor an event like Global Game Jam, and then they get shit on for that too.
Yeah, I mean,
It
they
is
would
not
get shit on for, you know, giving $100 million to the Jimmy Fund or, you know, any other kind of cancer research. Like there are people out there who are just so adamantly opposed to this idea of this new technology. And the only takeaway I want to give people from this podcast today is just take a deep breath and see where things go. You know, really like let the market decide and vote with your wallet. Like
yes,
if you're not into it, don't buy into it.
yes.
It's as simple as that.
These events, and especially something of the scope and scale of Global Game Jam, they cost money to run.
A
And Rob,
lot
I will say
of
some
money.
developers, but I will also say, so Rob Angel posted on Discord, he said it's not just a segment, at least say it was some developers. It was some developers, but I actually sat down and clicked through the people that were commenting and all of this stuff on Twitter, and over half of them were not game developers.
Yeah.
They were, a lot of them were artists. Fair enough. Okay. You know, there are a lot of artists that are getting fucked over by, you know, unscrupulous NFTs, but we can't live in a world where you're going to criticize a company for being evil, and then when they try to be not evil and support something that is worthwhile, you shit on them for that too. It's that was, it was extremely frustrating. And Global Game Jam backed out, pulled them completely out, and you know they're not sponsoring. And so my question, you know, I don't know the financials of Global Game Jam. I don't know how much Sandbox put in. I don't know how much, you know, money that they need to do what they need to do effectively. But I would say there are going to be people in the industry, indie devs, who need this sort of stuff that are not going to get support because, you know, that level of money isn't there right now.
Right.
It is not easy to pull in sponsors for digital events. I will tell you
It's
that
not easy to pull in
wholeheartedly.
any investment in this industry.
No, Rob. Oh,
Period.
sorry, Hardy. Rob, they actually killed them as a sponsor. They are not a sponsor anymore. I saw they had another tweet that followed up and said the Sandbox is no longer a sponsor of Global Game Jam. So I'll see if I can find that and post it. But yeah, no, they're not involved at all anymore.
Which I think that sets a pretty dangerous precedent because, you know, we have new technology game developers want to use, this new technology. Maybe not all game developers, but at the same time, not all game developers are making something for VR. Not all game developers are making something on mobile. Facebook gaming came and went. So social gaming is really a thing of the past. VR gaming, even that, other than Half-Life Alyx and Beat Saber, has not had a whole lot of market penetration. So, like I said before, just let people vote with their wallet. Maybe there are even people who were at the Global Game Jam who had never heard of the sandbox, who never heard of NFTs, that when they show up and see this might suddenly become really interested in it and find their calling. And all that's happening is you're denying aspirational developers access to tools that they've maybe never heard of, that they might have been interested in and might have been able to create the game that completely changed everybody's outlook on how this technology can be used.
Yeah. And that's where I think
it's stifling innovation. And that to me is horrific.
That is, the biggest role that I feel like indie teams in general can have right now. It's like, no one is arguing that, no one involved in crypto and NFTs is crooked and doing illegal shit and scamming people. No, that's a reality. But, it's a new technology that, can be used for good and or evil, but it does come down to the indie community to find these ways.
It does.
No one is expecting Ubisoft to come through and complete this totally green altruistic version of NFTs.
No, of course they were just going to replace their microtransactions with NFTs and say it's special. That's Ubisoft's job. Make as much money as quickly as possible because they have shareholders they need to appease. They are a publicly traded company. It is different for indie developers because we're not beholden to anybody, so we have a whole lot more room to experiment. Period. That's really it.
It is, and I can guarantee you, every publisher out there and a lot of the developers, if they have investors, not necessarily the ones that are just publicly traded, any company in the industry out there who has investors is looking at this in some way, shape, and form because the investors are absolutely all over it. This is
right.
The new hot
and
thing
they want their companies to make, as much return for them as possible.
Yeah, it is.
And they're seeing this space and, saying to their developers, you might want to look into this. You might want to think if there's some kind of way we can harness this. And, obviously the easiest way right now is just replace your microtransactions with it and put them on a blockchain network. That doesn't necessarily mean it is the best solution. And it doesn't even necessarily mean it's going to stick around. I mean, look at the models of free-to-play games from 2010 versus a decade later. We've come to an agreement that pay to win in free-to-play is awful. Stick with cosmetics. You look at Dungeon Keeper Mobile, that kind of model is out entirely. Nobody does that anymore.
Wait, what was Dungeon Keeper Mobile?
It was essentially you can build dungeons on your phone and then litter them with traps and stuff.
Oh yeah, I know that. But what was I didn't even know there was a mobile version of that.
So the mobile version, as you were digging, you would click a tile and it would take 1 hour to tear down a tile. And if you wanted to speed it up, you could pay $1. That was the business.
Yeah, that was the early versions of the free-to-play game. That was extremely
because nobody knew what they were doing back then. So they didn't know what would be acceptable by the market.
Crops in time in Farmville, they withered and died, and or you could pay money to make them. Yes, okay.
Which is why social gaming died out, but mobile gaming is still thriving to this day. And
social gaming is too with the right games.
With the right games, sure, but it's definitely not the market that the VCs were jumping on back in the day. I mean, I remember that was all anybody was putting money into, and I had absolutely no interest in developing in that space. Just didn't appeal to me. Probably should have in hindsight.
All right, so Dan, how are we on questions? Do we have a lot of questions queued up? Because I know we've been skipping around. Okay, all right. So yes, back to where we got derailed off. So what's the best way for developers and publishers to sync their operations with NFTs?
For that, I would say start, looking into building collaborative NFT networks, really. As of right now, for the Ubisoft courses and what Stalker had been planning on doing and such, those were all kind of contained networks. And if you really want this to be a collaborative space, I think there's space for developers to build a network that can be used by multiple developers, maybe with a fee, maybe completely open, like the OpenSea Ethereum network kind of idea. But really, it just comes down to developers having options that are full ecosystems rather than um, centralized. Really, like just follow that decentralization philosophy, and I think you'll start seeing more collaboration in the space.
All right, so we had a question from a while back on the Discord. Hold on, let me find it. Okay, so Robert asked, how are you going to convince developers to allow assets to change between games when we don't see the developers even sharing the same currency between their own games? Good question. Back to and I said, I have an example, and then we got derailed. There were a couple of indie fighting games that came out. And I cannot remember. I know one of them was Mighty Fight Federation. There was another one, and I cannot remember the name of it. But what this company had done was gone around to other indie developers and said, let us use your characters in these games. And they did. And I don't know the details of all the structuring and how
Yep.
they did it and all this, but it's not absolute crazy talk to say that this stuff can happen, because we have seen different developers, working with things, working with each other and cross marketing stuff.
Exactly.
It can absolutely happen. We know it can happen on the big publisher side.
One of my favorite
are-
examples in that space is a game called Super Indie Karts, which unfortunately hasn't been updated in a long time. But imagine Mario Kart with just tons of indie game characters from like Runbow and Duck Game and you name it across the board. Really, just pick up the phone, send an email, get talking to people. You want other, you want other games in your game, you got to talk to the developers and see if they'd be interested in the first place. I mean, NFTs are not going to change that aspect. You're not magically going to be able to, break copyright law on a commercial product by, just putting somebody else's stuff in your game without their permission. The only exception would be if it's like just a generic model or texture graphic, etc., that they've put up as an NFT for somebody to buy, and then you automatically load that in. But if you want that kind of collaboration, you got to work out the licensing deals.
We've got multiple comments coming in here about that's different because they're hard coded into the game. But that still can be the case. We're not saying that you're going to be able to bring any game into any character into any other game. You're still going to have to be. It's still going to have to be an accepted thing.
Yeah,
it's crazy to do anything otherwise.
I think there's some people out there who think that this space is going to suddenly completely destroy all notion of ownership and intellectual property that we ever had before. And I really don't think that's the case at all. Because if it was, then we wouldn't be so concerned about selling NFTs so that we can own digital items. So I think everything that we have created from a legal perspective, from a business perspective, et cetera, is still going to hold. It's just a new marketplace.
All right. So the follow-up question is, if we're already seeing games do this, what's the point of doing them with an NFT?
Just the whole decentralized idea, so that you're not having to connect to a proprietary network in order to, say, buy a weapon skin, or whatever. At this point, it's still so young that the easiest answer is we don't know. And it is,
And that's a
so,
fair
like,
answer. It's still
yeah,
early.
yeah.
You know,
It's like back in the day. Why would I want to play games on a touchscreen when I have no level of, no deep level of control over anything? I mean, a controller has less buttons than a keyboard, and a touchscreen has less buttons than a controller. So why would I ever want to play a game on that? And back in 2008, 2010, we would say we don't know. We have
to be
to
fair,
experiment in the space in order to create some use cases for us to look back on and develop a thesis as to why this either is or isn't a feasible technology for gaming.
I still think that people that play shooters on consoles with controllers are the devil, and they should be purged because that's not the way shooters were
That's
meant to be
not the
played.
way shooters should be
Yes.
played
If you
whatsoever.
can't circle strafe, there's like a new word for circle strafing now. I don't forget what it was, but I saw it on some game, and I'm like,
How dare they?
you're just circle strafing. One of the things that I keep coming back to is, indie devs have it hard enough as it is.
Mhm.
There is a ton of money getting thrown into this. So, if there are ways that you can come in and say, the sorry, hold on, random messages coming in. If there are ways that developers can get additional resources, I know of multiple companies right now that are paying six figures to have developers bring their games over to new distribution platforms, things like that. I don't want to see indie teams completely disregard this space, because one, it's their innovation that it's going to make this stuff cool and actually
Yeah.
useful down the road.
Yeah.
But two, it's hard enough to do this shit as it is.
Oh,
If
yeah.
there's something that you can do to bring more eyeballs, more resources, more revenue to your game, and you can do it within the ethical means of not destroying the environment or whatever qualms you may
Environmental
have
ethics,
on it,
business ethics,
yes,
gaming
you should
ethics. Yeah.
absolutely do this. I mean, don't sit back and say every single NFT thing out there is a scam when you actually have the power to change that.
Precisely. And it's like I was just saying, we don't know what the best use case is yet, because the ones making the use cases right now aren't making a very good argument for it. But the thing is, the technology is out there and doesn't cost really anything to get into, and there's people who will pay you to get into it. We're nothing if not creative, so might as well get into it.
I would actually like to make a comment, because um, in the Discord, Rob says, I'm not against new tech, but give me a reason why it works. Here's why it works. It's going to happen no matter what. People are throwing millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into it, and it's just happening. Whether we understand it, whether we like it, anything, it's just happening. Right? Why does it work? I don't know. I still completely haven't wrapped my head around crypto and NFTs, but I just know money, 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 and people, right? Because of a big group of people are just making it happen. Thank you and good night. Mic drop. Bam. I mean, it just is what it is.
I mean,
right?
The reality is, I mean, yeah, it is happening in some way, shape, and form. And we can spend a whole lot of energy asking, why, or, what the use case is, or we as the indie development scene can spend that energy saying, okay, here's a new tool. How can we best use this going forward? I don't think that if there was an easy answer to all this shit right now, then it wouldn't be as controversial as it is. Everybody would just go, oh, well, this is why. But the problem is we don't have that yet.
Right.
My point is, we don't need to be completely pissing all over, this tool set. And especially, the Global Game Jam thing really pissed me off last week. Really pissed me off. You can't just shit on a company when they're actually trying to do something, good along the way.
Oh, 100%. You cannot, especially when they're like, okay, we know people aren't really into our tech, and there's companies like Ubisoft that are, giving a bad name to it at the moment. So why don't we try to do something good, and, show the world, hey, here's a nice use case for the tech. And, we'll pay, I don't even know how much it was, somewhere between, probably $5,000 and $20,000 to help the show go on. And they're like, no, never mind. We're getting cancel cultured. We don't want you on board.
I will guarantee you it was more than $20,000 because
probably even more than 20,000.
So, from the consulting side, one of the big things that we see coming in terms of potential clients to our firm, a lot of times are, we'll call them tool set companies, service providers, things like that. And, they're offering something new. It's not always blockchain. It's something, it could be with, discoverability or, a new way of retaining customers, a lot of different stuff. Yeah. And when they come to us, they say, okay, so you're the expert. How do we get developers and publishers to pay attention to what we're doing and to utilize our stuff? And I'm like, you pay them, because that's the reality. The developers and publishers are getting hit every week with so many new, we have the latest ad thing, we have the latest retention thing to keep people playing your game, whatever tool set it is, they're getting hit with it every week. And the only way that you're going to get somebody's attention on it and to get these developers' attention on it is to say, look, we have something new and we're going to pay you to implement it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And honestly, don't expect me to pay you to use your untested thing, because I'm broke. Yes. I'm broke in the first place. You want me to use your thing that I'm not quite a believer in, like maybe, it's interesting to me. You hand over a check, my eyes are going to get little dollar signs in them and go cha-ching, and then I'll go do whatever you need me to do with it. That's business.
So Volga Store says, with no quote good use cases yet and the talk of millions of dollars being thrown at it, are investors making a rather risky investment? Hell yes.
Investment
but
is
that's
gambling.
What investors do.
Investment is gambling. Was it not a risky investment for Charles River Ventures to put all their gaming money behind Facebook games in 2011? Yeah, it probably was, considering there's not a whole lot going on in Facebook gaming anymore, and they're out I don't know how many millions of dollars from that. Was it not a risky investment for Nintendo to make the Virtual Boy way back in the day? Who knows how much they spent on R&D for that thing, only for it to sell 2,000 units total or whatever it was. Investment is gambling. And the people who, have the money to make these investments, are willing to take that hit. If they weren't willing to take the hit, they wouldn't be investing in it.
All right. Quick shout out to our friends on Discord. If you want us to not have to bend over backwards, post your questions in one of the streams so we can just click it. Otherwise, Dan's sitting over there having to transcribe all these things, and we're getting a ton of them in. So
there's that much. I knew there would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I have to go because I have a chiropractor's appointment.
So
I have a bunch of those queued up as banners right now. There's a good 6 more questions queued up. But thank you guys.
Thanks.
Have a great rest of the stream.
All right. So now I'm in charge, and so now things are going to go shitload slower. All right.
Okay.
So how can we prevent? Wait, we already did that one.
Yeah, that's just vote with your wallet.
Can game mechanics, AI systems such as Nemesis, or even game engines, all code function, become NFTs for the companies that made them as extra insurance of no one replicating? Well, we already know that you can replicate this shit, because especially like with the JPEG, you just do a screen capture and congratulations, you now have it too.
I screenshotted your NFT. Yeah, the NFT is really just the proof of purchase behind the file. So theoretically, you could zip up your game engine, make an NFT of the zip, and now boom, your game engine is an NFT, quote unquote. There's no reason you couldn't do it. A site like OpenSea isn't going to support it, but if you make your own back end for that kind of thing, yeah, you can absolutely do that.
But I mean,
I think that's where things are going. That it is only a matter of time before we have whole games that are themselves an NFT rather than just pulling in NFTs. Right now, it's really just a file size issue, because I think the technology itself can only support up to a certain size, or the websites where you upload NFTs can only take up to a certain size. Like, I know OpenSea can only go up to 5 megabytes or something like that on a file, which is minuscule even for the smallest of indie games. So,
but it's not going to stop people from replicating it, though. It's not like it's going to be a form of DRM or something like that.
No,
because you can still replicate it.
No, it is absolutely not DRM in any way. What it is you can sort of wave it around and say, I have the NFT of the latest Call of Duty, and nobody else has that proof of purchase. I'm the only one with that receipt. And it really just comes down to our collection nature. My dad has a stamp collection that he's been working on for the last 60 years. Some of those stamps are worth a penny. Some of those stamps are worth $10,000.
So,
They're little pieces of paper.
It's the thing that everybody's like, well, nobody's going to buy these things just for the collectability of it. It's like, have you seen the shit people collect? Yes, there are people that will do it.
Little pieces of paper, be them mail stamps or Pokemon cards.
All right, see
we attribute value to just the most random stuff. Even gold is a rock. And because it's shiny, we say that it has value. And it wasn't, until we had electricity and, heavy tools and stuff that we started finding more practical uses for gold. Until then, it was just a rock, sometimes used as, to add shininess to artwork. And again, artwork, this all comes down to art. This all comes down to collectability. This all comes down to our innate desire to show off something special. And these days we show off our special things over the internet. So it stands to reason that we're going to start having digital ownership of stuff.
My best case, what I really want out of this, is for me to be able to buy digital CCG games and then get physical versions of them.
I think that's happening.
Yeah, it used to. All right. So and if somebody out there who knows this can, point me in the right direction, for God's sakes, do it. The original Magic the Gathering Online, if you collected a full set of whatever the latest set was, of the digital version, you could redeem that for a full set, one each of the card version. I don't think they do that anymore. I know they don't do it with Arena. When you buy a pack of Pokemon cards, it has a QR code in there that you can scan into the digital game, and you don't get the same cards. You get the same pack, though. That has the Magic doesn't do that. I think that is brilliant on Pokemon's part.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like the collectible card game side of the world is a wonderful testbed for all of this stuff, because the big, complaint that I saw all the stuff on Magic Arena, and they're like, never buy this. It's not real. It's like, neither's my Fortnite skins or anything else, or my video games in general aren't real.
Right. Like,
but
for the most part, they're not coming on disc anymore. They're all digital downloads.
Yes.
If Steam, God forbid, ever goes down, there goes your entire game collection.
All right.
I mean, hell.
Next question. Is it a benefit to include NFTs when you'll be supporting a community that doesn't care? It's never a good idea to spend resources on something that people don't care about.
Also, I feel like that's a little bit of a straw man, because there are people who do care.
Obviously, because they're spending shit tons of money.
They're spending shit tons of money behind this. And as of right now, the shit tons of money is mostly going to artists. However, games are art. So, why have we rejected it so much compared to like the art and music community?
Okay, but here's the thing. When you say we, what you're meaning is North America and Western Europe, because South Korea in particular has they are
they're all over it.
Play to earn is a gigantic thing over there. So it's not like, no one in the world, no one in our markets in this region is deeply into it right now.
Right.
But it is absolutely a phenomenon overseas. So that's one thing to be clear about.
I'll tell you this. I've been playing Sea of Thieves for a year now. According to Steam, I've put in just about 600 hours in that. That is a lot of time that I didn't know I had. If I had the opportunity to get paid back for my efforts in Sea of Thieves, I would gladly take it.
That's my thing too.
Put a lot of time into their games to the point where we have started to make careers out of playing games. You look at Twitch streamers, YouTubers, etc. But that is indirect to the games themselves. So if the games can generate revenue for the developers, why shouldn't there be ways that the players can make money directly off of playing the games they love?
I would absolutely love to be able to recoup some of the money that I've spent on, but all right. So Vulcan asked, hold on. Can you explain play to earn? Yes. So play to earn right now, and this is like, free to play and everything else years ago. This is early stage. Play to earn is you are actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, but I know like in Mirror 4 and some of these other games, you are actually earning cryptocurrency as you play the game.
Right.
It's along the same lines. And this is where, this shit's not completely new. A lot of people don't know this. There is a, game platform, a game store called Robot Cash, CACHE. Their entire store is built off of crypto. I don't know the exact one. And blockchain and all of this other stuff. So you can actually buy a game on that store and then resell it and earn. You can actually earn. They have a particular coin. You earn this coin by buying stuff and things like that. So it's not completely new. It's not, out of the world.
And interestingly, that's the same kind of space that GameStop may or may not be heading into. They're building their own NFT platform right now. It's got everybody excited, but we don't really know what they're going to do with it. Everybody's best guess is that it being GameStop, you'll be able to, buy and resell your games as NFTs up on their platform. But then again, it might be for digital goods for game developers. There could be any number of use cases for it.
All right. So, all right, hold on. Next one. Finding. So for NFTs, from our Discord, do I own the actual art piece by owning the NFT? AF, as far as I know, NFT is just a spot on the blockchain representing the art piece, not the actual asset itself. Or is this wrong?
Nope, you're correct. You own the proof of purchase of the NFT. You don't actually own the art piece itself. What makes it interesting is that the NFT still links to the art piece. So theoretically, if you have a platform that can pull in the file that the NFT is connected to, then you can pull it in much the same way that you would pull in any other external file. But you have this proof of purchase that will live with you theoretically forever. And be able to access the artwork as long as it's also online.
All right, next. This is like esports, Dr. Vern. Everybody's taking money out. Where does the money come from? Investors.
Investors, the buyers, because like everybody who's taking money out, gotta figure they're putting some money back in as well. Like, in the art space especially, there's a lot of back and forth where it's like, I'll buy your NFT, you buy my NFT. Deals are worked out where somebody will buy something for 5 Tezos, which is probably about $20, and then they'll resell it, and then it'll get bought a week or two later by a stranger, even though it's been reposted at a higher price. So the original artist will still make a commission on that because, when they set it up, they put in a revenue split of, say, 10%, 20%, even 50%, whatever. And so each time it's resold, they make some money on it. And that then becomes a consistent revenue stream for the original artist rather than just a one-time sale. That's where things start getting really, really interesting. Like if the Van Gogh family could still be, say, making money off of, each time a random, artwork is found in an attic somewhere, then I think they'd probably be pretty ecstatic about that kind of thing. So, I think we'll see the same thing in games, particularly in like the mod and user generated content space where, somebody can make a mod and then the NFT of it is bought. And then the next time it's bought, the original modder is still making some revenue off of that each time it changes hands.
All right, I'm going to jump in here real quick because I feel like with people coming and going, we have to continually say this to be clear. We are not sitting, this is not a podcast about how everybody should be jumping to crypto and NFTs. This is a discussion with, the community and our own, indie developer here, Danny, about what this space is and, having educated civil back and forth about it. No one is saying that these things are the latest, greatest. Everybody's got to jump on it, and there are not scams going on with it because there absolutely fucking are.
This is just facts about what the space is up to, where things could go, ethical ways of approaching the technology, and different use cases across multiple segments, how everybody's using it, how game developers and publishers could use it, what they're doing wrong, what some developers are doing right, and what everybody should understand about what's going on before they, start grabbing their pitchforks and torches and trying to burn everything down.
Yes, we will do that later. Anyway, all right. So Rock Knight says, if you pay an artist to create something for your game and you have full rights to it, is it possible for the artist to remake it as an NFT to take back the rights?
That all depends on what you put in the contract. I mean,
and what's enforceable.
Yeah, exactly. I would assume at the moment it's really no different than, if you contracted an artist, say, to make concept art for a game, and if you originally gave them rights to, like, you can sell the art when the game is released, then the same would go for an NFT. But if you said, the artwork you create belongs to us, and it's on us to do whatever we want to or not do with it. Then they can go and try to sell the NFT, but they might get a lawyer knocking on their door.
And this is where we always like to talk about, there's the legal answer and then there's the real world answer. It's real. I mean, so the short answer to your question is yes, that is possible. The long answer is more along the lines of it's no different than right now. If you hire somebody on Fiverr to make a model of a weapon or a vehicle for your game, and even if you have all of the paperwork and contracts and all the stuff saying that you own it, it's not going to prevent them from going and selling that same piece of art to somebody else. That's just
right.
The reality. And if this person is based in China or Southeast Asia or somewhere beyond the scope of the reach of wherever the law, wherever you are you really going to go after them? No, there's not shit you can do. You can try to defame them on the internet, but that's all there is to it. This isn't going to be some kind of stopgap or like I said, it's not DRM. It's still going to be possible. I could go out there and technically create images like this Hoth background that I found right before I went. I could sell it. It doesn't mean I won't get my shit sued for it, but
look at like MP3s way back in the day when we had Napster and Kazaa and whatnot, and there wasn't a market for MP3s back then. And everybody was just like, we need to kill this technology as quickly as possible. Then Apple comes around, they're like, we're gonna try selling these. Let's see if that works. Oh yeah, it worked. It absolutely worked.
All right, so solid question. Can the servers be shut down? Is there
I don't know if you've ever pressed the power button on your computer,
like that. But I mean that's and I'm not an engineer. I can't answer this question myself. But that's a good question. If you go and you create this whole NFT and it's on whatever blockchain, I'm assuming that blockchain, if it gets like turned off or whatever, then everything's worthless again.
Gone. Yeah, but the same goes for your Steam collection. If Valve ever goes out of business, the same goes for your playlists on Spotify. I was a Google Music user. I loved Google Music, and then all of a sudden one day they're just like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore because we're Google. And
yeah, that's a good example.
I'm like, well, there go all my MP3s. I better just save them locally and reinstall Winamp because I'm a child of the 90s and that's what we do. And yes, I still use Winamp to this day.
And we love llamas.
Play shut down.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, and I thought somebody tried to hack my Steam account last week, and I was like, you know what? I had already come to grips with it. It's like chances are all that shit's going to be gone. All right. So hold on.
The actual asset is stored on a regular web server. The NFT is just a chunk of data. Right now, these blockchain platforms can only store, these small bits of text, which is, I think that's tied to the file size limit in some way. Because, something like a 60 gigabyte game, trying to condense that down into, bite-sized text, probably isn't going to work. So yeah, right now, the only thing that's stored on the blockchain is just the little string that says you own the piece of art, and then the art is stored on more regular traditional web hosting. We will hit the point within the next 5-6 years where every piece of an NFT is stored on the blockchain. But as of right now, it's like a 2-prong split.
All right, hold on. We got a big one coming in. And I posted this over. All right. So this is from the Discord as well. There was an article on the news about Bitcoins mistakenly being thrown out. And we know, everybody knows about that dude who's been digging in, landfills in
He
the
bought
UK.
Bitcoin for $1 back in 2008, and now it's worth like 60,000 times what it was back then, and he lost the receipt. Yeah.
Yes. So does it pose a risk to NFT-based systems, specifically losing access to certain tokens and being unable to trade them due to human error? And is there a solution for that? Yes.
Yeah, that is a risk. If you say lose access to your wallet where the NFTs are stored, the wallet basically being your decentralized collection of your centralized collection of decentralized items, essentially. So this is like your MetaMask or your Kukai or whatever you use for whichever platform. That's just a big collection of your stuff, your library, essentially. So if you lose access to your wallet password and backup code phrase, then yeah, you can lose access to your stuff. So I definitely recommend having some kind of password manager or even a notebook where you store these things if you're going to get serious about it, and keep it handy.
Yeah. And so we just had somebody in chat point out that, the pixel artist community hates NFTs right now. And someone asked why. And it's because there are crooked people out there who are taking other people's work, minting it into NFTs and selling it. And no, that is not good. We all agree that sucks ass. And
yeah.
but,
there are platforms that do a better job of trying to prevent that from happening than others. Calumet, for instance, has a pretty like bare bones but better solution than others that I've seen, where they will detect if an art piece has been uploaded to their website before or not. Of course, it can be circumvented by changing a single pixel in it, because I'm pretty sure it's just based on like the MD5 hash of the file itself. But it's better than some other platforms are doing. It's not very long to be able to like run a TinEye style AI algorithm that scours the internet before you upload something to see, hey, does this image actually exist?
all
And
right,
if it comes back with a positive response, and it's like, we can't let you sell this.
which website were you talking about?
Calumet, which is a Tezos based NFT art platform.
Can you post that?
Yeah, where would you like that? Just in the Discord, or?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll let you post it on the stream, but put it over in the podcast session. And Floyd, I saw your comment, but I was like in the middle of three things. I saw you said both with a question mark. Can you repost what the question was, because I'm all over the place right now. All right. Love that we can have real discussions about this, and
I know, and like not get up in arms about it, because I've really studied it more from the artist side than the game development side. And I will say the art community in the NFT space is wonderful. I've made some very nice friends over there. They're passionate about it because they finally found a source of income that can be a little bit more steady for them than has traditionally occurred in art. And that's neat. So, I would like to see that same kind of mentality spring up in games. Like we've been saying, the technology is just very, very young. And when it comes to games, there's more expectations of like, oh, it has to be interactive. It has to, affect our gameplay in some way. And I would argue not necessarily, unless you're ready to approach it in a way that, isn't already being done in another manner. You have to innovate. You can't just replace.
All right, and good questions. Like, what do you say to the artist whose work's been turned into an NFT without their permission? I mean, the same thing that I would say to anyone whose shit has been stolen. I mean, the problem is, it is on the internet, and you can't just go down to your local police station and say, hey, look, somebody stole my art. I mean, you need to be able to, go after everybody, whether it's at the platform level or whatever, to get, this stuff back.
Yeah.
It's, at the same time, this is the internet, and it is a Wild West area in many ways, shapes, and forms, and you do have to be careful with it.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody
There
is
are risks and
condoning
responsibilities to everything. So, really what I would say is, like, for the artists in the audience, don't if you're intending to sell something as an NFT, don't post it on Instagram or DeviantArt first.
Well, Merle's point is
Sell the NFT
intending
first.
on it. They are,
Yeah.
this is art that they're generating for fun or, for a hobby or something, and
Right.
it's getting stolen.
Well,
is there a DMCA side to NFTs? If somebody posts something on OpenSea or on Calumet that is not theirs, do the actual artists have a way of going and getting it back?
Once it's sold, no, but that's how it is for stolen goods anyway. You look at pirated movies, especially if somebody walked into the movie theater with a camcorder and recorded it and then started selling it on a street corner, and the police or the FBI can track them down, but the movie's already in somebody else's hands, and most likely you can't find out who that was because they paid in cash. So, once it's sold, there's not a whole lot they can do about it. If your stuff has been stolen, you can contact, the site that's selling it and say, hey, this was stolen from me. And, they will do generally their due diligence of stopping it from being sold. But once it's in somebody else's hands, there's really nothing they can do at that point.
Again, it's like there's the legal side of it and there's the reality side of it. Yeah. It's like Paramount can afford to send lawyers after everybody that, pirates the Top Gun movie, but the rest of us out here, can't. And, it's like if you own a trademark or whatever, you're responsible for, policing it, but it's not, it's not reality. We can't go out and we don't have the resources to do it.
And, even then, even Disney can't stop fake Star Wars t-shirts from springing up, on Redbubble, for instance.
Yeah. The sites that are like, you only have one day to buy the shirt. Well, it's like, well, there's a reason you only have one day to buy the shirt. Because it's illegal as shit. That's,
So there's a certain level of just taking a deep breath, and, it sucks that it's the way it is. But if you can kind of accept that and then roll with it in a way that can benefit you in a positive way, rather than just throwing a conniption fit and trying to sue every single platform in existence and bankrupting yourself in the process.
But realistically, though, one, your conniption fit's justified. Somebody stole your shit.
Right.
But two, that's the only option that you have is you have to go after these people and try to sue them. And that's what that's the whole thing with trademark copyright law, even internationally as well. You're obligated to go and sue it, but we can't.
So let's think about this from a gaming perspective. Piracy, for instance. Say I've released a game, it's not selling so great, but say I notice that its downloads are in the thousands off of Pirate Bay or whatever. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I start seeing that, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can either sue the Pirate Bay, and that'll go nowhere, or I can say, okay, there's interest in what I'm doing. What am I missing? Is it priced too high? Should I release a demo? Should I, make it free to play and change the monetization structure? There's any number of pivots that you can make.
Art. The whole big thing about game piracy has been for 20 some years. It's going to happen even before digital. It was happening. We called it gray marketing.
Yeah.
because we would see units shipped from one country to another where they didn't really have the right, but you couldn't really do that much about it. And so it's all boiled down to basically you just kind of have to accept those people that stole it probably weren't going to buy it in the first place. So it's not like, when Ubisoft or Nintendo goes after somebody and they're like, oh, you've been running this ROM site, we're going to sue you for $50 bajillion for every, it's like bullshit. Not everybody who downloaded that ROM was actually going to buy it, but
well,
it's hard.
what
It's
you'll
not
notice
the same with art though, because it is
this. So it kind of is though, and I'm hoping this isn't like the worst generalization I've ever made, but there's a lot of artists complaining about this space who themselves are not involved in it, but there's demand for their art in the space. And so maybe it would behoove them to look into it a little bit and not write it off, completely as criminal activity and instead as a business opportunity. Because obviously there's demand for their art. So maybe if they were more involved in it, sites like OpenSea or Calumet or Hicketnunk, whoever, would be faster to catch their stuff that's being sold without their permission. See what I'm saying? Because their stuff would already be available.
Yeah, okay, you're not wrong. But at the same time, you can't realistically expect everybody who's going out there and creating hobby art and creating, fan art and things like that, everyone who has a DeviantArt account or wherever this may be posting stuff to Instagram, to go out there and spend a shit ton of money, because it costs money to mint these things.
It does.
You can't expect them to go out there and do this for every single piece just so somebody doesn't get it. I do see your point. That said, is that if you're creating art and it's high quality and it's consistently getting stolen, then yes, you should possibly look into some of this stuff. But this whole market is still so new, and there's still so many platforms out there and so many different ways to do it that yes, I mean, the artists are right now the ones that are getting shit on the worst about this, because their stuff is the easiest to copy and steal. And the minute it's sold, nobody gives it, there's no getting that money back.
And as this becomes more of a problem, it is up to the platforms to solve it more than the artists themselves. And if the platforms refuse to solve it, then a new platform is going to come around that does. And that becomes a big appeal to artists looking to get into this space, and more people then abandoning the old ones that refuse to do anything about it. And then, they just go out of business like any other business that refuses to problem solve.
All right, so I'm watching like multiple streams here at the moment. Marley has a really good question and a really good comment on the artist side, but if I don't do this in order, it's not going to happen. So the next question: are there such things as consumable NFTs that expire over time?
You could theoretically do that. That'd be pretty easy to do, I think. So what there are there's a technology called a burn wallet, which is essentially, I'm going to send my NFT, from my personal wallet to this burn wallet, where it will theoretically be destroyed. Theoretically. Unfortunately,
but if you sold that, you have to burn somebody else's NFT.
Essentially, yeah. So these wallets basically just gather the NFTs and hit the delete button on them. Now the weird part is that theoretically it's not possible to delete anything off the blockchain. So there is some question about, like, is this really legit? In my opinion, I lean toward no. But here's the thing. If you were to control your own NFT network, say as a game developer, and then the NFT goes to the burn wallet that you also control, then yes, it is safer for the consumer at that point to have a consumable NFT that you, as the game developer, then just destroy when it is used up. In general, I don't think I recommend it. I think you're better off, say, having, like some kind of so you can actually put variables on NFTs, which is why there's like a big CCG space in NFTs right now. And you could theoretically have ways to change that over time, or have a in-game version that's compared to the NFT version, and then if the in-game version hits 0 on time, then it's consumed, but your customer still owns the original bit. It just is no longer synced up essentially with the game version. It's all programming, it's all numbers. There's plenty you can do there.
But basically, though, if you create one and somebody buys it, you can't destroy it at that point. I mean,
without their permission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the short answer to that question is no, you can't.
The short answer is no. The long answer is there are ways you could do it if you actually wanted to.
All right.
And
so
interesting.
Dr. Worm said, what do you mean by platform? I mean, the different stores out there like OpenSea or Calumet that sell it, each one of those is a platform. That's what we're talking about. So Merle had an interesting point. Another issue with NFTs is that they're asking, somebody will come to an artist and have them make a piece of art for $5 or $10 and they sell it for 100 to 1,000. Yes, one answer is if there's that big of a market for your art, you do need to be selling it yourself. But at the same time, are there ways? I mean, are there ways to set commissions?
Yes.
In these NFTs?
Yes.
All right. So how would they go about doing that?
Well, at the moment, put it in the contract, and fulfill your end of the contract. Like, that's the best advice I can give you. Like, just for life. So the websites like OpenSea and such are working on ways to, essentially type in other users who were involved with the creation of an art piece, and then how much commission they will get. Honestly, I would expect to start seeing that by the end of this year.
So you can't do it at the moment right now.
At the moment right now, not quite. It's really just about, the personal relationship. What makes it complicated is that once it's resold, then a percentage of that resale goes back to the original artist. So all they really have to do is just make sure that the percent of a percent that was agreed upon originally goes to everybody who was involved. So like, if you're going to make 20% royalties off of resales in the future, and each person, involved makes like 50% off of it, then it just has to make sure that 10% goes to this person, 10% goes to this person. Again, it's really just math. And right now, people are more focused on getting things out into the market and working than having them be perfect and fit every possible use case.
Yeah, down the road, I can absolutely see a scenario where, if certain person has a better, it's just like a retail store. If somebody has a better route to market and they can get the sales and the artist wants to just generate the content, then yes, there needs to be, some sort of way that automatically, not relying on someone's honesty and everything like that to get it done. But yeah. And so Merle, I mean, it depends on, because they ask, who fills out a contract for a $10 commission. The real answer is it's the same. Even if somebody comes to you on like Fiverr or whatever, that's technically a contract. The question is not, who's going to fill it out. The question is more along the lines of how are you going to enforce it, and that's the hard part at the moment.
Yeah.
All All right. So yeah, and I've got to get. We're actually coming up on our 2-hour mark on this.
Oh my God.
So I have to go and get some.
You probably have to
today.
shovel at some point.
Yes, I do. I'm looking at that too. Bottom line, we are 100% acknowledging that artists are getting completely ripped off a lot in this right now because
but there are also artists who are finding new revenue streams that they never knew could exist before.
We're not pretending to come up with the be-all end-all solution to NFTs and cryptos for indie devs, but we are saying that it's our community that's going to spur the innovation in this and the how to make it, and let's channel some of that this is pointless energy into acknowledging that it's going to happen. It's in some way, shape, or form, it already is happening.
Yeah.
How can we best use this tool, this tech tool, to improve our games, to improve ourselves, to bring in, extra revenue? Because that's at the end of the day, you can make hobbies all day long, make games for hobbies all day long. You don't have to listen to a word that we say here on this podcast. But if you're going to do it as a business, you need revenue. And that's the biggest thing. And that's what Danny's doing with his game. They don't have the NFTs completely integrated into it, but he's playing with the market by generating art outside of the game and doing it. So as always, man, y'all know you have tons of access to us on the Discord. I'm more than happy to have these sorts of conversations as long as they are intelligent and they don't result in a bunch of name calling and everything like that. So Danny, all the way out, tell us where we can actually buy your game.
Mondrian Plastic Reality is available on Steam for $14.99 USD. I am currently working on a free admission version, which will be out in a couple weeks. So, finally, you'll be able to make art in the game completely for free. Obviously, it's going to be a neutered down version of it, and we would still love to have your support. But in the meantime, when that comes out, if you want to just put stuff up on Steam Workshop, I'm doing my damnedest to make sure you're going to be able to do that. Might have to talk to Valve. So yeah, pick that up on Steam. Follow us everywhere on the socials at Lantana Games, LANTANA Games, and just join our Discord. Keep an eye on what we're doing. We're always doing different kinds of events and even like art contests from the game and community building, all sorts of crazy opportunities to go along with the game, the art, the live service, everything that goes along with it. I think everybody here will have a lot of fun with it.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you as always. Go to indiegame.business to find all these podcasts. The tickets to our next event are up there now. That's live coming. All kinds of other good stuff. I'm going to go start a fire and get warm because there's not nearly as much heat in my office as there needs to be on a day like this.
Yeah.
And we'll see all of y'all next time. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Jay. Bye, everybody.